Hey, this is Yasuki Wolf, and welcome to the premiere episode of Benkyoukai. Now, this is sort of a series that I'd like to try for a little while, and it's kind of a growth from, I guess, some of the feedback I've been getting in a lot of my recent videos where I've been asking if people would be interested in learning some Japanese, and a lot of actual comments that seem to be positive toward that idea. So we're going to go ahead and start teaching you some basic Japanese. And now don't worry, this is not going to be my only content. I will still be producing the same videos as before with the illustration and gaming and other things like, and just talks about Japan and whatnot. But I figured this is something I can kind of offer up there for people and hopefully be of use. So the reason why I'm calling this Benkyoukai is because Benkyoukai is the Japanese word for a study session, or like study group, I guess, in a way. And I figured, since I am not a native speaker of Japanese and I'm sort of a fellow learner, it would make sense to call this a study session rather than making it I'll teach you Japanese, or like let's learn like lessons of Japanese or whatnot. I want to be more of a communal experience of us all working together to be as good as we can be in the language. I've lived in Japan for 12, 13 years or so. I kind of lose track, but I've been here a long time. I work in an office with 98% Japanese coworkers, so I use Japanese every day, and I think I could confidently say that I am fluent in the language. So I think I do have some merit to teach you, but hopefully I will just be here to assist you and bring you to my level, and eventually we can both probably be in the same footing. Who knows? Maybe there are some people out there that are much better than me, but then you probably don't need to watch this video. So at any rate, this is going to be very basic Japanese. But before we can get into the gritty stuff, I know a lot of you want to just get into like learning your favorite anime phrases and like learning how to like converse regularly or things like that. And that is cool and important. I think there's a lot of actual language courses out there that just give you like the phrase of the day or whatnot, but that's not what I really want this series to be per se. I'm more in kind of, I'm going to have each episode build off of the last episode, so it's not something you can just jump in at any point. You probably should watch from the beginning. And this episode, what I want to kind of stress is that before we can get into really learning the language per se, we need to I want to teach you how to read and write, because I think that is a foundational knowledge that is necessary for you to really get anywhere with this language. And if you're not willing to at least try to do that, you're not really going to get that far, in my opinion. I believe that if you were to come to Japan, or if you want to do manga, you're going to have to use the characters, and just to understand the way that the language functions and how things are put together, it's very helpful to be able to see the visual construction of the language. Especially because it's kind of put together in a way that's a lot different than what you may be used to with Western languages. So with that being said, I just went to 4gamer.com, which is my favorite Japanese gaming news site, and I found this article about the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim coming out in VR for the HTC Vive, and I am very excited about this, but that will be topic for another video. For this video, the only reason why I brought this up is because I wanted to give you a real world example of the Japanese language in its in writing, and how it interacts, or how it's constructed, because you may not be aware, but there isn't just one Japanese alphabet per se. There are 3 different writing systems that are used together in Japanese writing. So you may notice as you look at this that there really aren't any spaces. I mean, here you see there is a comma, so they do use commas, and we have this kind of circle here, which is basically like what you call it, a period, and this kind of bracketing here is basically the Japanese equivalent to quotations. So it's sort of like quotation Dawnguard and quotation Hearthfire and whatnot. And we do have English lettering where it is where it's describing something that would be understandable to the average Japanese reader, but it's not super common. So don't expect all like English phrases or words to always be written in English. A lot of times they actually will use something called Katakana, which I'll get into a little bit later. But you'd notice that there aren't really any spaces. And so the way that you can tell where one word ends and another begins is actually linked to the three different writing systems. Because if it was all written in one writing system, it would be very hard to figure out where one word ends and one word begins. And it actually there are some children's books in Japan that are written all in just all in kana, and they're really hard to read actually, even though they're for children, because the kanji, and let me explain that kanji is the Chinese characters that, or the characters that are based off of the Chinese characters, and kana are there's actually two different kana. There's hiragana and katakana. And katakana is what I mentioned earlier. That is what is used for non-native Japanese terms, or non-natively Japanese terms. So terms that come from outside of Japan. Things like here, it says, I'm assuming you aren't going to be able to read this, but it says pack or paku. And this is written in katakana because it's coming from the English word pack. And right before that, it says kakucho in kanji. And these are the Chinese characters for expansion. So it's the expansion pack of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. So katakana is used for foreign terms, and hiragana is the Japanese writing system that's also phonetic. So these are two types of kana. So there's three altogether. There's hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Let me close my arrow. So katakana and hiragana are both kana. And we call them kana because if you listen closely, we have katakana, and then you have hiragana, and gana is just it's kana with a stressed k that turns into a g. So it's because of the way that it's when it's merged with hira, it turns into a g. So it's hiragana, but they're both kana. Kanas are phonetic, meaning that each letter represents a sound. So, for example, let me actually zoom in a little bit more into this article so you can see a little bit better. Then get the whole sentence into one line, something like that. All right. So let's see if I can find an example of hiragana. Well, it's not hiragana. Here we go. So on the very top, it says the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim VR, and it has koshiki, which is a combination of kanji, which means official, and then saito. So these three kana here each represent a different sound. So you have sa, I, to, right? So these are phonetic, right? But the kanji here for koshiki, these kanji aren't always pronounced the same way. It's contextual to what's being relayed. And so these are what we call, I think it's ideographic or pictographic. So each kanji represents an idea. And we'll probably understand a little bit more as we go into the actual sentence over here. What I think I'll do is I'm going to first just show you the kanji. So the kanji are ideographic. They don't represent sounds per se, although there are sounds associated with them, but they represent ideas. So it's ideographic. It's an ideographic writing system. Okay, so now we have all the kanji in the first sentence highlighted. I don't think I'm going to go beyond the first sentence just because it will take a little too long to explain everything. But for now, just on the first sentence, we see that we have the first kanji here on the left. This is a kanji that means year. So remember, kanji are ideographic, so they're representing ideas. So this is the idea of a year. Then we have month here. So right here, we can already kind of guess what the meaning of this would be. It says 2011, year, 11, month. So it's the 11th month of the 2011th year, or in other words, November of 2011. And then our next kanji here is release, or release. So the game, we can guess, The Elder Scrolls V was released in 2011 of November. And then we go on from there, and we have genzai. This means now. And then ryukei, which is like a culmination or a total. And then we have some American, or not American, but English lettering numbers here. So we have 3,000. And this character here actually stands for 10,000. So this is a little confusing whenever you're dealing with numbers in Japanese. But we have 10,000. We have 3,000 10,000s. So 3,000 times 10,000. This all together means, I believe it'd be 30 million. 30 million, and then here we have a kanji that means copies. So we have 30 million copies, and then here this kanji here means surpass or great. Or so this is something I would have to explain at this point, I believe. So a lot of these kanji here, they are just simply one word. So like this is just year, this is just month, this is just now. But here actually with release, release is a verb. And when you have kanjis that are acting as verbs, you actually expect that after the kanji, there should be some hiragana. And so you'll see here that actually, let me like kind of square these out a second. 1 second. Okay. So I'll just draw a line underneath it. So this kanji with the hiragana next to it actually is all one verb, which means was released. So the first part says it means it conveys this kanji here, they convey the idea of release, but we don't know, is the game releasing something, right? Or is the game being released, right? So there's different inflections of verbs. So verbs have different forms, and they call that inflection. So we have to add the hiragana next to it to understand in what manner the verb is being used. So in this case, the game The Elder Scrolls V isn't releasing anything. The game The Elder Scrolls V is being released. So we have sare here, that the hiragana here to explain the term to explain the inflection of this verb. I will explain that in more detail in future lessons, but for now, let's just keep it at that. The inflection, the kanji represents the idea. So, like if you have an idea of like taberu, like you might have the idea of to eat, and then the hiragana next to that will tell you, is it eat? Is it eating? Is it ate? Is it I want to eat? So there's a lot of different inflections of verbs, and that's why in cases like this, when you have a verb that's represented by a kanji, it's usually grouped with some hiragana next to it. And don't worry, we will explain that in detail in future lessons. But for now, we're just giving a brief overview of how the language works. And let's go ahead and take this, and I'll add this over here, because over here at koeder, by itself it just means something like super, but when you use it as a verb, it means to surpass, to be more than, or to go over. So we have with the hiragana here, it means that there was 30 million copies that were surpassed. So it was more than 30 million copies, right? And we go down here, and here it has a style. This is another case where we have the actual kanji is being grouped with hiragana because it is a verb. So basically, we put this all together, and we could assume, before even reading the hiragana or the kana, we can kind of see that it's talking about Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls V, and it has been said. So this kanji here is to report or to be said. So it's been said that it has surpassed 30 million copies altogether up till now, sold. Or it doesn't really say sold, but it's just surpassed 30 million copies, and was released in November of 2011. You may notice that I tend to read things backwards because the order is different than English, and when you're translating like this off the cuff, often the order is almost backwards. It's not exactly backwards, but it's almost the opposite order. So that's how the kanji are being used. It's just those are giving us the basic ideas, and then I just told you a little bit about how hiragana can inflect the meaning of verbs, but there also are cases where hiragana might be used to express a Japanese term that's just not being used with kanji. So let's see if I could get a different color to, well, yeah, I'll find a different color to show you the hiragana. All right, so now in the green, you can now see the hiragana, right? And hiragana is not an ideographic writing system. It's phonetic. So each one has a specific sound, and it always makes that same sound regardless of context. So here we have how should I go about explaining this? So there's two different things there are two things that are happening here. We have some cases where it's acting basically like a particle, or like a preposition. So things like on, in, at, and words like that just kind of like connect other words, right? So here we have that this hiragana here is just telling us that it was in or on November of 2011 when it was released. And we already discussed how these hiragana are inflecting what the verb is. But then there also can be just a hiragana that's just a word, right? That's not written in kanji. So after now, or genzai here, we have made, and made means until. And then no is basically like a apostrophe s. It's just connecting. It's showing a relationship between this kanji and this kanji, so that we know that this is so this kanji here was the total, or the culmination. So the total amount, and this total amount is being modified by now. So the total amount up till now, right? So until now, up till now, is over 30 million, right? And then we also have something that this gets kind of complicated, and we'll get to this in a future video. So this is going a little beyond the scope of this video, but we also have things that are called I think they're called particles, I believe, and it's basically like just a grammatical element that explains to you what the subject or object of the sentence is. So this here is O, and this is telling us that the copies, the 30 million copies, are the object of this sentence. There also is often a particle that will represent the subject, but the subject is often dropped if it's understood by context. Yeah, that's beyond the scope of this video. Sorry. So come back to where we were coming from. So you see that hiragana basically has it's used to kind of fill in the gaps and to give you that extra information about if the kanji is a verb, how is that verb being used? How are the different words connected to each other? It's basically kind of like the paste or the glue that fills in, that connects everything together, right? But now we have one other thing here, and this is katakana. Now, we mentioned katakana earlier, and you may notice that it doesn't come up, there isn't a lot of katakana. It's mostly kanji and hiragana, but every once in a while you will have katakana. And this here that I have not highlighted is katakana, and it says hito, which is just the Japanese kind of pronunciation of hit. So Skyrim was a hit with 30 million with more than 30 million copies, right? So hit is a term that we use in English, and they're borrowing it from English, so it's not native to Japanese. And they're letting you know that by putting it in katakana. So down here also, at the bottom, we have paku, which means pack, and it's connected to kakucho. I mentioned that earlier, so that's the expansion pack, right? And I believe that those two are the only katakana in this whole paragraph. So I mean, if you go on to read, it says the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, sono VR-han wa 2018年8月に Doom VFR や Fallout 4 VFR とともに開発が発表され, so it was announced that Fallout 4 and Doom VFR would be released for VR, and the PlayStation VR version 2018年12月に登場した like the VR version the PlayStation VR version of Elder Scrolls 5 came out in December of 2017, and now the PC version will be released the same way. Will be released having the same 3 expansion packs as the PSVR version: Dawnguard, Hearthfire, and Dragonborn. Oh, that's good to know. I didn't realize that it did have all the expansion packs included. But so you may have noticed right there that so it is just these two. Those are the only two katakana in the whole thing. So katakana isn't used very often, but it is very helpful for you to learn as a student or a person traveling to Japan, because the benefit that you have as an English speaker is that a lot of katakana is based on English. So if you can read it, you'll automatically know what the words are. Well, not necessarily automatically. You have to sound it out and try and figure out what they're going for. Like paku, what could that mean? Oh, pack, you know. So like, but you'll automatically have kind of an input in what those words could mean. Whereas if you even if you knew how to read hiragana, you might read something like mono ni natteru, and if you don't know the actual like the terms behind that, you won't be able to understand what that means. But if you see hito, you might be able to figure out, oh, it's a hit. The game is a hit, right? So if you go to Japan and you're ordering from a menu or something, and you see like hoto dogu, you might be like, oh, yeah, I want a hot dog, and then you can order a hot dog. So it is very useful to learn. But in terms of just Japanese sentences, it doesn't come up. It's not as it's mostly the hiragana and the kanji. You may have noticed earlier how I was just reading through this, and the thing that's really cool that I think is really cool about the way that this is organized is, since you have like the kanji expressing the concepts, and then they're being modified by the hiragana, and you could see that very quickly. Like especially now, you could probably tell with the way that I have this set up with the colors. Like even though I haven't taught you how to read each of these individually, you can kind of see that now that, okay, these are where the main points of the sentence are, you know, and you can tell where one word ends and one word begins, because you know that, okay, this is the end of one word. This word is connecting this word, and then this is a verb, so we know that this is going to have something inflecting it, right? And then we have another noun after that, and we know that. Here's hiragana, and this na genzai, that means now, so that's not a verb, so we know that this hiragana is not part of that word, but it's actually a new word. And so you can tell without spaces where one word ends and one word begins. That may be hard for you to visualize right now, but trust me, once you actually get a hang of the three different writing systems, it's very clear, and it makes it very easy to skim through content. Like I think you could probably read I probably read Japanese about the same speed as I read English, because I'm a really slow English reader. But if I was a fast English reader, then maybe it would be different. But and if so if I was a native English Japanese speaker, I probably could read Japanese much faster than I could read English, I'd imagine, because it's just so quick. The information is just right there, and so you could just very easily skim through this and be like, oh, so Elder Scrolls 5, Fallout VR. There's a VR version. It was released on this date. The PC version, it has Kakucho Pack. It has an expansion of Dragonborn, Hearthfire, Dawnguard. You know, so it's a very succinct and powerful language, I think, once you get the hang of it. But first off, like, I hope that didn't scare you too much, because this is just an overview of what the future can lead to. But obviously, we're not going to have to deal with all this right off the bat. So to start off with, all we really want to worry about is learning kana. So let me bring those up. There you go. So I mean, it's about this. It's basically like learning an alphabet, so it's not like a huge endeavor. I mean, it will take a little bit of work to memorize these, but I mean, it's just a couple rows of letters, so it's not like, I mean, you may have heard about the 2,000 Chinese characters and whatnot that are used often in Japan, and yeah, learning 2,000 like symbols, that's pretty daunting. But you know, we could just start, but you really just need to start with this, and this is basically just like your alphabet. And you know, if you read manga, if you want to read like Shonen Jump or something, or anything that's targeted toward a younger audience, even if they use kanji, they'll always have hiragana or some sort of kana. It's actually called furigana, but don't want to complicate this too much. That actually will write what the kanji is. So even if you can't read the kanji, if you can read hiragana and katakana, you can read jump comics and like young comics for young audiences. So this is really the foundation. I highly recommend learning this, and in my future lessons where I go into grammar and everything, and actual like using sentences and everything, I'm not going to be using Roman characters. I'm not going to be writing in English. I'm always going to be showing you actual Japanese lettering. So this, I know this is going to be a little tough to bear through this to get started, but this is essential to get to the future content. So that's why I'm going to go through this, and hopefully I'm not scaring you with this. Don't worry, it will get a lot easier. I went through a lot in this video, but the future videos will be a lot simpler. So this was just kind of an overview. That's why it's episode 0. Till next time, in episode 1, when we start, we will be starting Kana. But for now, that's all for this episode. Till next time, yoroshiku.